Luton Town were probably the last club I expected to suffer back-to-back relegations because fast forward or rewind even only 2 years ago, I would have talked about them as one of the best run clubs pound for pound in the country, possibly even on the coattails of a Brightford or a Brentford, Brighton or a Brentford even. In terms of off the back of promotion, beating Coventry City in the 2023 Championship playoff final, they'd gone on this extraordinary rise from playing non-league football, winning the conference title in the 13-14 campaign under John Still that year, to winning numerous promotions to get to the Premier League 4. And so that was a phenomenal achievement for Luton Town under Rob Edwards and under Mick Harford as well, and Gary Sweet, the CEO, and David Wilkinson, the chairman and owner. And it felt like just such a calm, well-run football club. And so you don't tend to associate calm, well-run football clubs with back-to-back relegations. And so off the back of not only the relegation from the Premier League, which I probably did expect, to be honest, but the relegation from the Championship to follow up, I'm sort of left scratching my head a little bit and trying to understand how and why that happened. But my best sort of explanation is that what had been a massive strength for Luton Town in terms of their ability to see the bigger picture and maybe not rush into decisions and create a real stability and trust in people behind the scenes. Maybe what they needed after coming down from the Premier League was to shake things up a bit more. And I think rather than trust the same players to do what they did 2 years ago, which is what they did, I think they probably needed a bit more fresh legs coming in and just that word freshness, I suppose. It felt like a squad that looked a bit drained. Rob Edwards looked a bit drained in his final season as well, although he's back to looking radiant now. He's got the Middlesbrough job. But I think, it was a combination of things, but mainly the sort of not revolving or evolving the squad enough after relegation from the Premier League. And I think this represents a dilemma for Luton Town and the ownership, in that because they are so level-headed and because they can see the bigger picture, they're making the decision to prioritise a lot in the new stadium project, which is going to serve the football club for decades and potentially centuries to come. And I think for the board to prioritise that, even though it's not going to make them popular necessarily in the here and now, I think takes immense courage and foresight and dignity. And I really do applaud them for that. At the same time, I think back-to-back relegations dictates that the here and now deserves a bit of attention. And that's what we're going to give it in this summer deep dive. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. I'm speaking to a fan of each of the 72 clubs across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. So if you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. Delighted to be joined this evening by Lewis Williams, who you can also subscribe to on YouTube for some excellent content on Luton Town and English football in general. Lewis, thanks so much for joining us this evening. How do you reflect on, I suppose, the mistakes that have been made over the last couple of years at Kenilworth Road?
Certainly, probably the worst 12 months of watching Luton, I have to be honest with you. I wasn't really old enough to remember the season where we got the minus 30 points and then we ended up getting relegated to non-league. And the non-league seasons are a bit of a blur now because it's been so long. But yeah, the last 12 months is certainly one of the worst I've ever witnessed. And you just don't expect it. I don't think anyone expected it. Okay, poor season, maybe finish in 18th. You can put that to one side and go again. But relegation, back-to-back relegations, I don't think anyone expected it.
No, absolutely not. Again, we'll sort of throw it forward at some stage, but I do want to kind of touch on, I guess, this dilemma that I referenced in the intro in terms of the board. They want to put a lot of money in the new stadium, and I do think that that's admirable. But is there a feeling that they've maybe left their hand off the tiller in terms of the here and now, in terms of the playing budget?
There's been a lot of that in throughout the last 12 months. There has been a lot of, we've taken our eye off the ball, we're focusing on the new stadium. But I like to point out to people, the stadium's been going on in the background for years. We won the League One title when we got approved of Power Court. That happened in the same season. We lost Nathan Jones. So there were distractions there. We didn't take our eye off the ball then. And then we won promotion out of the Championship to the Premier League. We improved every single season in the Championship. So it's like people are using it as an excuse on why we didn't do well. I kind of don't think it's to do with the stadium was going on in the background, because it has been over so many years. Okay, there has been complications, COVID and making the stadium bigger, and there's been different like changes of plans. But what are the other people been doing? Because that only requires the CEO to look at why are we not, looking at the right players in terms of recruitment? Why are we not scouting the right areas of the country? Who are we talking to? So I know people might say, oh, it might have had it might have been a distraction. I don't think it's been that much of an impact. I think what's let ourselves down is maybe keeping the same transfer model. That's what I think is more impacted, rather than the stadium being on in the background.
How would you describe that transfer model that hasn't worked in the last couple of seasons then?
I say because we've won promotion, because we won the promotion to the Premier League, you're then talking to a different caliber of player, and maybe agents as well. You might be talking to more high-profile agents who might do their business a little bit different. They do their negotiations a little bit different. And then you're talking about certain types of characters from high-profile players, because, when you talk to, like I say, lower league players, don't get me wrong, there are ambitious lower league players, but they've got to work a bit harder to get to the very top. Whereas when you're talking to the players that are already at the top, they're not going to... I think some players won't punch above their weight in order to, be successful, where I think a lot of lower league players will do that to want to be successful. Hopefully that makes sense. So I think we were just talking to a different pool of players and agents. And I think we were trying this transfer model of, keeping wages still quite low, like normal, and maybe, agent fees, hang on, we don't want to be... I think we just didn't want to be mugged off. We didn't want to feel like we were paying over the odds for certain things. And I think they've realised actually we might have to, that negotiation gap, which we might have to make that a little bit bigger in order to get certain player profiles to the football club. And I think as well, it's the first time in the club's history we've had a lot more money than normal. And I just don't think we learned how to deal with that correctly. And then I think as well, other clubs have gone out, well, we know you've got parachute payments, so we know we can charge you a little bit more. And I don't think we took that quite well. We thought people were disrespecting us maybe in the negotiation. Maybe we had a little bit of an ego in terms of our negotiations and thinking, actually, we're not going to drop down to your standards. We're going to carry on being us. And I think that's maybe impacted a lot of things. That's how it came across to me, especially in the Championship summer window, when the recruitment for me was nowhere near good enough, and it was far too slow.
Yeah, I think very difficult to say without being in the room and being in the call. So a lot of this is speculation, and I'm curious to I'm keen to say that just because for context. But I do have some sympathy for the board, in the sense that I do get the impression that there's lots of agents, even at lower levels, but I'm almost certain it gets worse the higher up you go. There are some agents that do absolutely take the pee, and they're absolute rotters. There's some really good agents that I've been lucky enough to come across. There are also some absolute rotters out there as well. There's probably not many in between. I think they're either good agents or they're rot bags. And I think that they've probably faced more of the latter, with more of the parachute payments. And I think that that's a challenge. And I think for somebody like a Mick Harford, say, who's got very solid football values, if you like, it's probably hard for him to accept being mugged off or being sort of strung around and that kind of thing. So I can imagine, and again, I'm speaking about what I'm imagining rather than what's definitely happening. I can imagine that's been difficult to navigate. So I suppose those are the compromises that you have to make if you want to get to the higher levels, isn't it?
Just to add, to that.
Sure.
So when there was reflection done by Gary Sweet, and I don't think it was a statement, but I think it was mentioned in program notes that they did say that they had some tough conversation with agents, and he didn't obviously name the agents, but he did kind of reference that actually the reason why the summer window wasn't as good as it should have been was because of these agents. I just want
Yeah,
to apologise for my dog outside as well, if you can hear it barking.
well, I think the dog's furious about bad agents as well.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I kind of get it, because I think if you've built so much of your success on being very culture led and bringing the right people into the building, the idea that you'd suddenly welcome in with open arms these agents who are kind of messing Luton around, I can kind of understand why you'd say no. Actually, there is a boundary, but Luton have taken a bit of a shortfall perhaps on the pitch as a result of that. So definitely some lessons to be learnt. I wanted to ask you, Lewis, about the second half of the season under Matt Bloomfield, because that's the part that's going to be more relevant to your League One prospects. Obviously, the big encouragement, I suppose, would be the improvement defensively, especially the impact of Kleist Mikoso and the form of Mark McGuinness as well.
Yeah, he's improved like the defense, the attack, and also the fitness, which was absolutely crazy to hear a manager come through halfway through a season and say we've actually improved the fitness of players and also improved the injury record. So with Matt, I'm excited what potentially could happen. I think he definitely needs to bring his own players in. He needed a preseason. I think he wants to implement his own style, which I don't think he was able to do midway through a season. He had to revert back to the way Rob Edwards was playing, which I wasn't really wanting. I wanted a complete new way of playing, but I understand why we did that, because the players which we've got at the football club, they are used to that old way. So it made sense at the time why he reverted back. But yeah, I think this summer now he's got more time to work with the players. It's probably the best time you're going to get to really install his own philosophy and ideas across and get the players playing the way he wants to play. And I think with us being one of the more financially backed sides in the division, I think you're able to do that because you're able to attract the right type of players to the football club. So I am excited because you saw what he did with Wickham. And they away from home, they were pushing Birmingham to the very max. And you're talking about two clubs on totally different finances there. So if he could do that with a club like Wickham, and no disrespect, I'm just saying, the club size compared to Birmingham, then I'm hoping he can do that with us, and yeah, we can replicate the same success.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. I'm wondering, he seems like a very honest and down to earth guy as well. Have the fans kind of warmed to him in his tenure so far, even though he hasn't been able to deliver the outcome that you're all hoping for?
Yeah, I think with Matt Bloomfield, I'm really sorry. I don't know why the dog's barking so loud outside. I think with the way he acted the first 8 games, I think that gave a few red flags with certain supporters, because it shouldn't take you 8 games to win your first game. I think that was the issue, and there were definitely some winnable fixtures in those 8 games. I understand it can take you a couple of games, but then there were some games where I think Plymouth at home, we completely dominated them in terms of chances, and then we only managed to get a draw. Preston, we dominated possession, but we didn't really attack that well. Sheffield United, we done extremely well, but then one mistake let us down, especially in the second half. So there were definitely like winnable games, especially at home. And that caused a few red flags. But then once those 8 games came about and then he first got his win, then we started seeing, right, this is what Matt Bloomfield can do, getting massive wins away to Cardiff and then to Derby, to Hull. We thought, wow, we're going to stay up. And then I don't think anyone expected the final day to happen like it did. But to get us into that position after what he inherited and also from those 8 games was really special. If I didn't see that impact, I definitely would have been a lot more concerned for this season, because then he's not made a single bit of impact to the side. But now he has, and I see that he's improved certain players like McGuinness. I'm a bit more excited about what he could do in this upcoming year.
Absolutely. So in terms of the goalkeeping situation, you've got James Shea at the moment, you've got Christian Walton, and now Thomas Kaminski was linked with a championship move, wasn't he?
Charlton, yeah.
Charlton, yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Would you like to see another goalkeeper come in?
I think Walton's perfectly capable. I think he's had 2 fantastic seasons in Scotland. He won promotion from the Scottish Championship to the Premiership in his first year, and then in the season just gone, he actually made the most saves in the Scottish Premiership. So I think 2 fantastic seasons in Scotland. He's experienced in League One with Barnsley and in the Championship with Barnsley. I think he's more than capable of stepping up. And even if, okay, maybe he isn't capable by some weird reason, James Shea, last time we were in League One, shared the Golden Glove Award with, I think it was Adam Davis, the Barnsley goalkeeper at the time.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 keepers there, more than capable. And I don't agree with having 3 senior keepers. I'm a strong believer in you need 2 senior keepers, and then your third choice should be an up-and-coming under-21 player that might get thrown in every now and again, who they can learn from the senior keepers. You don't need 3 senior keepers on high wages, in my opinion. I think you can cost save there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Well, hopefully it could be a big season ahead for Christian Walton if you're correct in that Thomas Kaminski does get that move away, because he's certainly a talented goalkeeper I've liked for a while. In terms of right back, one thing I'm quite curious about, Lewis, is Rule Walters. I know he didn't have a great debut season for Luton. He did arrive with billed as quite a high potential prospect, I think, from Arsenal. Somebody who can play in a variety of positions and has a decent range of attributes. I appreciate you've maybe not seen the full extent of that just yet, but is there a feeling that dropping down to League One could be a good opportunity for him to show what he can do?
I feel actually sorry for him a little bit, because I think one thing we need to answer is in this upcoming year is what formation we're going to play, because I think that's the massive question mark. Are we going to play 4 at the back, or are we going to do what we've been doing this season just gone, playing 3 centre halves and the 2 wing backs? Because I think last year there was multiple different styles. Edwards tried one way and then reverted back to the old ways. And then Matt tried his way and then reverted back to the old way. So being under 2 different managers, your first, season as a professional footballer, that in a first team environment, and different styles of play, I think that didn't really help his development and help him ease his way into the side. I think in the games which he did play, I didn't see that he was quite ready for Championship. I think there was a lot of mistakes there, but he's still young. He's still going to learn. So I reckon in League One, where the quality isn't as good as the Championship, I think we'll see more of him this year, and with more games as well, like what's it called now? What's the new sponsorship trophy?
EFL trophy. It's like Vertu or something.
Yeah, that cup competition. That's another, a few more games there. You're in the first and second round of the FA Cup. So there's more opportunities to see what he's actually made of, and learning against the more experienced players, and also having a settled backline, because that was one of the biggest issues last season. We never had a settled defence until the second half of the season. So the likes of Cal Naismith, McGuinness, learning from those 2 centre halves and next to him, hopefully would be the right thing for his development.
Yeah, I would hope so. I think it's really important that you don't write off young players after one bad season. I think if they come with a certain reputation, you've got to give them a fair opportunity to show what they can do. And hopefully League One can be that kind of confidence booster for Rule Walters, because I would expect him to be a very good player for that level. In terms of centre half, again, as I mentioned, you've got Mark McGuinness there, who I think, if he stays, is going to be one of the best defenders in League One. Mads Anderson, I think, might be off, is he? You've got Cal Naismith coming back as well. Holmes there in there as well. So and Reece Burke and Ted Menji. So a few centre half options there.
Yeah, quite. This is what I mean. We need to figure out what formation we're going to play, because if we are going to play a back 3, then you need to keep all those centre halves. But if you're not going to play a back 3, then you kind of need to allow a few of those to actually leave the football club. So I reckon Mads Anderson, Ted Menji, maybe Tom Holmes as well might be the 3 to leave. Leave the football club. I think Cal Naismith, the good thing about him is the versatility. So whether that's a back 4, back 3, or play him as a defensive midfielder, he's adaptable. Exactly what you want. You want players that are adaptable and can still produce really good performances, whatever position they play. So I think the real problem is it's trying to figure out what system, what formation we're going to stick with for this upcoming year. I'm going to the first preseason game this Saturday against Bournemouth. I know it's only preseason, but normally you can get some like hints from those types of games on how we're setting up and what the plans are going into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be curious to see. McGuinness, I mean, I imagine you're hoping that he's going to be the real linchpin for Luton Town's defence this season, whether it's a back three or a back four.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the future captain. I think he needs to learn from Naismith. I think his performances got so much better when Naismith came into the side, and he started to look like the player why we spent so much money on him. League One, I think last time he was in League One, he was with Sheffield Wednesday and he smashed it. So I can imagine he's going to smash it again. I think he is a championship defender. I think he's just an old school defender. He's not that ball playing defender. He is a little bit slow, but in terms of winning every aerial battle, putting your body on the line, he's exactly that. And I think with confidence, he gets better. I think when he doesn't have the confidence, that's when he has his moments. Again, he's another player that I feel sorry for because he came in like just after the first game of the season, where if he came in at the start of pre-season, like he should have done, if we were quick with and proactive with our recruitment, I think he would have been a lot more comfortable going straight into the starting 11. But because he missed pre-season and got straight thrown into the Luton team where we had an injury crisis in defence, it kind of like, I think a lot of people were really quick to like write him off, when I think that was really unfair.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think he can be decent on the ball. I agree. I think he probably needs another athletic centre half or two alongside him. But I think he's got a little bit of ball playing ability. But certainly his main.
I don't think I got to see it that much. I think because the thing is, we were lumping it forward to Morris and Elijah. So when you're lumping it forward to Morris, who wins a lot of these aerial battles, don't get me wrong, but that's what I was seeing. I wasn't really seeing his ball playing ability. It was more on what I'm too scared to pick up the pass to my wing back or to the midfielder in the middle. I'm just going to go long every time, and it was very long ball. Last season. So maybe.
I suppose, yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I think you're about to make the same point as well. That it might have been more of a systematic thing as opposed to a ball playing ability thing. So that'll be really interesting to see in League One next year. So I'm wondering, I think one big key to this formation conversation, Lewis, is Alfie Doughty and whether he stays on. Because if he stays on, you'd want him at left wing back rather than as a left back in a four. But if he goes, then that would open things up for Matt Bloomfield to go to the back four that he's used with Wycombe Wanderers.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's just like we need to find an answer to this system and formation, which he's looking to do. But even if he does play a back four, I still think you could play Alfie as a left winger, as he's played further forward before with the likes of Charlton and Stoke. So he can play as a number 10 and he can play as a left winger. He has done that in the past. And when Matt Bloomfield first came in, he did play Alfie a lot further forward, and he did score against Sheffield Wednesday playing as a left winger. So I do think he's got the capabilities, but what worries me is his actual best position as a wing back rather than further forward like a traditional winger. But I think Alfie might be going, because I think despite the poor season last year for like overall with Luton, he still had plenty of good moments. Premier League season, he was very, very good. And then the season before that, in the promotion winning season, he was very good. So he's more than capable of being a top class, championship player. Championship player. So I reckon we're going to have a lot of interest for him. And I don't think we'll see him in a Luton shirt in this upcoming year. He's the only player I've not seen in the preseason photos. I'm putting two and two together here and trying to give you an answer. But when you've not seen a player in the photos and he's the only one, I think that kind of, it hints towards something. So maybe we're not going to see him.
Your highest profile player. So it's
and then with Edwards as well going to Borough, and I can imagine he's going to play the same way which he played at Luton, Watford and Forest Green. I can see Alfie being one of the players he definitely tries to bring to the football club, and I'm pretty sure they can spend over £5 million on Alfie as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So moving on to central midfield then, Lewis. I'm excited about Liam Walsh because I saw him play at that level for Coventry City, and he had a real sort of metronomic influence in that side, brought some real playmaking qualities to Coventry, and I think his progress since then have been hindered a little bit by various long-term injuries, but I'm wondering, he did show some promise today in the second half of last season.
Yeah, he's changed. My opinion of him has changed massively because he was a walking red card. He would just get sent off every time, and it was like, you're not doing yourself any favors here. You know, coming onto the pitch and getting sent off. He did it at I can't remember who it was against at home, but then he did it away against Blackburn for the second time. And then he got sent off against Coventry. So he's disciplined. He needs to be worked on. But I think the way Matt wants to play and keeping possession of the ball, he's a really good passer and progressing passing as well. He knows how to look after the ball in tight areas, and I feel like you need someone like that who has got that intelligence from deep, who can pick out the pass. And if we are going to play with wide attacking players, I can imagine the diag balls, getting the ball out wide as quick as possible. He would be the perfect player in order to do that, but his discipline does let him down. But when he first came in, yeah, it wasn't great, but he has massively improved. And I got a feeling he's going to be one player for us. He's going to be one of our key players for next season.
Let's hope that's the case. I wanted to ask you about George Saville then. I think he's the first and so currently only signing of Luton summer so far. Are you excited about the championship pedigree that he's going to bring?
Yeah, him and Cal Naismith, dropping down Cal on a permanent basis. Saville, when you see that Millwall were willing to offer him a new contract, and then he also had other championship interest, and that I think that excites you as a fan when a player could have easily have stayed in the second tier, but actually no, I want to go to Luton because I want to be an important part of their hopefully back promotion to the championship. He still believes he's got. He wants to win stuff in his career. And, even at the latter stages in his career, he still has that hunger, that drive to, I still want to do something. I'm not done here yet. And I think if we had someone like him last season, it would have made a massive difference. Someone who's a leader, someone who would put his body on the line, I called in, I don't know if you remember, we had a player called Alan McCormack who we signed when we were in League Two.
You know what? He scored an absolute belter, didn't he, in one of those 7-1s or 8?
It was on his debut.
It was on his debut. Was that the Oval game? Yeah.
Yeah. First game in. And I reckon Saville was going to bring that type of impact to the football club. Basically, someone, because Nakamba wasn't giving that to us, I think, with the injuries and so on. But I think Saville's going to lead. He's going to protect the back four. He's going to be I think when you play for a club like Millwall as well, the fans don't tolerate players that just walk into the team and don't try. You've got to try playing for that football club, especially for a number of years. So I think when you've got that type of character, that type of profile coming in, he won't accept players, not caring, which I think we had last year. So someone like him in the midfield, got Naismith in defence, we get someone similar in attack. You've got a really good balanced team that's starting to have leaders on and off the pitch.
Yeah, I think if you get the spine in place, you're probably not going to go too far wrong because you've certainly got the quality in all those other areas. So an exciting addition. Hopefully George Saville got plenty of championship experience, played a lot of games at that level, and you don't do that without being a pretty consistent performer. Another player though, I think could be quite a bit of a step above League One level is Marvelous Nakamba. Because, there's been times where you'd have considered him a competitive Premier League player, if you like, with Aston Villa not too long ago. And certainly he made a massive difference, didn't he, in the second half of the promotion season. If Marvelous Nakamba stays, would you expect him to make a contribution?
I honestly don't know with him. I think his legs are going. I think he had a serious injury in the Premier League season. Then he's been constantly injured throughout the Championship season just gone. And when he has played, it looks 2 yards off it. He definitely isn't the same player which we had on loan. And my biggest concern is I just don't think we're getting that same type of player. I guess League One a little bit slower than the Championship. His legs might still be there, but for me, I would rather play Saville instead of him.
Okay, interesting. I would, from an outside perspective, I'd probably leave the door open for Marvelous Nakamba to have a really big pre-season and come back storming, because it's not like he's that. It's not like he's a veteran, is it? I think he's
It's early
uh,
30s.
oh, the early 30s. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, he can have a good pre-season and show what he can do. But is Heath Chong another one that you're kind of questioning from a fitness perspective rather than ability?
Chong's fitness isn't the issue. It's more his end product. You know,
Right.
in 2 years being at the football club, his first assist came on the last game of last season against West Brom in the 5-3 defeat. And he's meant to be this wide attacking player that is direct, who can beat anyone on his day, that's skillful. You know, for me, attacking players are you score your goals, create your chances. I can't tell you moments where Chong has created chances. The performances are just not consistent enough, and I feel quite offended with him, because in the Premier League season he showed moments of absolute brilliance on his day. Of course, he didn't show it every single week, and it's the Premier League. But there were times where I thought, wow, if he does this in the Championship, he would storm it. But he just didn't produce those moments. He didn't produce those moments of quality, and I think he is a victim of. I don't think we know his best position. Because for me, he's a left winger, and then we were playing him out as a wing back, which I just think is complete stupid, because he isn't a wing back at all. I don't think he's a centre mid. So for me, the only position I think he's a left winger. Get the ball out wide to him. You let him make. He's meant to be that type of player that puts you on the edge of your seat, and I just don't see that with him. And I'm trying to think of players that get me on the edge of my seat. And the last player that did that at Luton was probably Lawalawa. And Chong has potential to do what Lawalawa did for Luton, but the end product's just not there. And I think that's something that needs to be worked on. But also, I don't know if his attitude's in it. I just
Right. Okay.
The thing with some of these players is I think there's a lot of bad eggs within the dressing room, and I think we need to get a lot of them go. I think some of them think they're too good. I think because there was a lot of lack of trying last year. And
Yeah.
I think it's unacceptable to just receive back-to-back relegations. I think something has to go massively wrong in order to do that. And I can only think that, well, Morris kind of hinted it in his Derby interview recently, and he said that a couple of bad apples basically were in the dressing room.
Really, you used that phrase, did he?
Yeah, well, yeah, he was kind of like, pretty much saying those types of words. So when you hear that, and he was meant to be one of the stronger characters in the dressing room, he was the one leading from the front, apparently. And then you hear that, for me, I think we've got a couple of bad eggs and they need to go. And I'm thinking the likes of Telen Menji, potentially Nakamba, Chong, Baptiste are the ones that I think need to be shown the door. But very difficult because they've had poor seasons. How many clubs want a poor player?
Yeah, so I have mixed feelings on this, because I mean, again, like we talked about the conversations with the agents, we're both speaking from a point of view of not knowing what gets said inside the dressing room. So I think it's risky to make too many assumptions, but I certainly take that on board, given the perceived sort of lack of work ethic from some of those players. But I suppose if I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, Lewis, what I would say is that Ted and Mengi, Heath Chong, Marvelous Nakamba, and Baptiste, they're all the kind of players where if you put any of them individually into a really strong culture and they did buy into it, they have got the ability to be streets above League One level, I would say, especially from Nakamba's point of view, if you can find that fitness again. And I think somebody like Chong, who we were speaking about earlier, like Chong, if he can get the mental aspect of the game right, he's going to be a phenomenal footballer in League One and could play a massive part. So I understand where you're coming from. I think the cultural rebuild is so important for Luton Town at this stage. But there's also part of me that looks at some of those names and think, Jesus, if you get it right with those, then they could absolutely storm it in League One.
Well, that's my feeling towards this upcoming year. Like, I've got no doubt about it. We're going to be competing at the top end, but it's whether or not not on quality wise, but just it's mentally. Are we mentally prepared to fight and win promotion, or are we going to have the attitude of actually we thought we were too good for the Championship, we're even too good for League One, so we're not going to put those, we're not going to give that extra.
Right, yeah.
When you, I'm worried that we're going to go to the likes of Stockport, who a club over recent years who have every single year, get better and better and better, and they're just wipe the floor with us if we was to play them now, I reckon. And that's my concern, because I think being good and being mentally there are two separate things, and that's, if we can get mentally there, I think we'll win the league, we'll win promotion. But that it's just whether or not we can do that. But I just think we need maybe one or two characters still to come in to help us with that, and also we need one or two to go.
Well, and by the way, Lewis, I don't know how familiar you are with Matt Bloomfield's background. I imagine you are, because you like your research and all that kind of thing. But I think from with Matt Bloomfield, he played pretty much his entire playing career, other than well, no, hang on, let me get the second half of his playing career, because he did spend some time at Wycombe before Ainsworth, but I reckon about 10 years was under Gareth Ainsworth, who was just extremely culture-led, where it would be sort of pre-season trips and bring everyone together, and there would be some routines where they would do a haka, like to a New Zealander, and all that kind of stuff that's very culture-led, and everyone buys in, and there's no room for egos. So I think Matt Bloomfield's basically been schooled in the Ainsworth School of Management. And I think that while he's got his own ideas, and he's got some more progressive ideas to bring to Luton Town, I think culturally getting that bit right, I think is going to be a massive priority for him. So I would expect quite an intense pre-season, probably big on fitness, and also big on culture, bringing everyone together, and also getting rid of those bad egos, whether that's through offloading players or whether that's through getting one or two of the egos who might remain actually to buy into the culture, because I think that's going to be top priority for him this summer.
Yeah, again, referencing back to Wycombe, before their recent new ownership, under the previous ownership, they wasn't financially, ever at the top end of any league.
Yeah.
So, and when you're signing players, the players have to punch above their weight. If they're going to be successful, they've got to work harder than all the other teams, the other bigger clubs with bigger resources, bigger finances. You don't go from League Two to Championship like Gareth Ainsworth did at Wycombe for not trying. You've got to try. You've got to, do all those little bit, like those extra bits. And the fact that Matt Bloomfield has learned from Gareth Ainsworth will be a massive hit. Although I did enjoy the battles between Luton and Wycombe over the years, so I got to see it firsthand, luckily. So I do know what there's potential there, and hopefully that culture, because Nathan Jones was big on it as well. Under Nathan, it was all about culture. It was all about, I sign good players that are proud to represent the football club. And I think maybe since Rob Edwards has came in, we've gone away from that, in terms of maybe we've not brought the right characters. Maybe we didn't do those extra background checks on players because I think with Nathan, he always used to reference the PowerPoint presentation for players. Maybe obviously, fair enough, Edwards will go away from that because he's his own man. But I think we've gone away from that a bit too much. And that's why we've had this culture change. And that's why I call in this Project Reset, because we've changed. Recruitment's had a little bit of a shake-up. The commercials had a little bit of shake-up. In terms of board, had a little bit of shake-up as well. Players, hopefully there'll be more shake-up, especially in the next 2 weeks, because of the football financial year, 1st of July, the new one starts. So, players are now out. They're not contracted to clubs anymore. Players are out of contract. So hopefully with all that's happening, there's a massive reset, and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, I'm glad Jay Sossack's been given a different role within the recruitment department, because I'm a massive admirer of him. I think from a data point of view and from a point of view of finding finding players through the numbers and identifying players that way and how they're going to fit into the team. He's one of the best I've come across in football. I think maybe at the front line, if you like, it needs a Matt Bloomfield to actually take these players for a cup of coffee and talk to them about what makes them tick and get to know them and get a feel for their character. And maybe that's an aspect of Luton Town, that's the recruitment process that they need to fine tune a little bit.
Yeah, well, with the recruitment, so you've got Mark Tracy, who have just got from
Lincoln City, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. And if you think of the recruitment Lincoln have done over the years, he's done some impressive work. You've got Mick Arthur's had a change of role as well. He's going to go back to more old school scouting ways, which I think is the correct decision. And then we've hired Yusuf, who is first team recruitment manager. He used to be the youngest ever technical director for a club in the Netherlands, but he's got massive. He's got a Chelsea CV and Arsenal CV. He was the reason why Walters actually came to Luton, due to his Arsenal connection. But he's only recently, he basically came after the summer window. So he was responsible for bringing the likes of Ali, Asgard, Makosso to the football club.
And those have been the better signings, haven't they? January window was way better.
So with Yusuf, Mark Tracy, Mick being more old school, Jay being one of the best in the data, in the data football analytics data industry, you've got a good combination of multiple things there, which hopefully will bring back the good recruitment which got Luton up through the leagues. I'm praying.
No, I think in theory that all makes sense, because you got different people bring different qualities to the party. So you're not just looking at it from a data perspective, but you're also not ignoring data and missing opportunities to find players. So do you know what? I'm glad you mentioned Milanic Ali and Tello Asgard, because they made a real impact in the second half of the season. Because I think first half of the season, Lewis, I looked at Luton Town and you're so static up top. It was like no real movement between Morris and Adebayo. I know they were starting for the promotion winning side 2 years ago, but a couple of years on and just nobody coming short. And it was all about whether you could get crosses into the box. And whereas you bring Milanic Ali and Tello Asgard into the team, and the movement just looks so much more dynamic. I imagine it's almost a relief to watch a team with those players who are making those runs and adding that unpredictability.
Yeah, the football did get better the second half of the season. It's just a shame it took so long to get to that point. But yeah, it was also a weird thing that we didn't make a change a lot sooner than we did. But Asgard, I think there's a championship player there. It's just the problem with him is the Norway manager. He's already said a lot of things about, I'm not going to call him up if he's playing League One football. So you've got your international. I find that absolutely pathetic. I think he should be nowhere near conversation to Luton about whether I only pick players who play in higher divisions. I'm not being funny. The bottom end of Championship and the top end of League One, there isn't much between those clubs. I think if you was to put those teams into a mini tournament, I think they beat each other every single week. That's how close it is.
If you're an international manager, wouldn't you want your player to be somewhere that they're happy and enjoying their football, as opposed to forcing them into a move that they don't really want?
Yeah, that's that as well. And he's also only been at Luton for 6 months. So Asgard would have known the risk of actually, there's no guarantee Luton would have stayed up when he signed. So he knew the risk of actually, I might drop back down to League One. I think if he gets his head down, I think he can be he create the most chances in the league. He score goals and add assists to his game, because there were times in the Championship, but I think this is due to style, where he actually went missing. There was large periods of the game where he weren't getting on the ball, he weren't making things happen. But when he did get on the ball and he was making things happen, there's a player there. There's a player with quality. I want him shooting more, because he definitely has a really good shot on him. So there's good moments there, but the one player that did impress me more was Ali. And I thought, if you're doing this against Championship defenders, imagine what you're going to do against League One defenders. And he was already doing it for a club like Exeter. And no disrespect to them, they were mid-table League One. But if you're doing it at a club that's being more attacking, scoring more goals, creating more chances, he's going to add even higher numbers to his game. My biggest concern is, though, we might lose him. Hopefully we don't. But again, a club for Asgard and for Ali, they would have to give us a big fee, because we've only recently just signed them and they're on long-term contracts.
Absolutely. So with Carlton Morris going, Lewis, at the moment you've got Elijah Adebayo as your centre forward options. Corley Woodry can play there, or although I think of him as a bit more withdrawn. And you've also got Nordas, who I think might have been one you signed in January as well.
Yeah.
So my question would be to you, Lewis, is your starting number 9 for next season currently in the building?
That is another big, massive question mark because I think we need another striker. We were after Nordas. I don't think we wanted originally. I think we wanted Richard Kone, as you know, it was reported massively, multiple bids rejected. I don't think we're going back in for him again. I think there's too many clubs now looking at him. No surprises after, especially the first half of the season he had in League One.
Although I think his value might be slightly lower because his second half of the season wasn't quite as unbelievable as the first half of the campaign.
Yeah, and I think he's also got 12 months left now, whereas in January he had an extra.
A slight injury as well in March.
So he's as you say, his value is a little bit as definitely a lot lower now. So we can basically should have said yes to us, but unfortunately they didn't. But yeah, I think striker wise, we need someone. I want the complete. The one thing which we don't have is a striker who I think can run in behind and get us goals, use a bit of pace. I think we had the perfect player for that, and it was Joe Taylor, and we let him go. I think we now need a similar player like Joe Taylor at the club. I'm looking at the likes of, I think his name's called Owen Dale. Is it Owen Dale or Dale Taylor?
Dale Taylor, yeah, Wigan.
Yeah. I really like him. I thought he was outstanding. Also Lowe, who on loan at Walsall last year in League Two.
Oh, Nathan Lowe, yeah, Jesus, yeah, that'd be a great signing.
So those are two strikers who I really like the look of. Nordas, it's hard to really form an opinion on him because we signed him from Norway, who they've only in January they were starting their pre-season. So he was kind of getting fit when we needed to throw him in matches, which didn't really help the situation. And then he ended up having a few sub appearances, and you can't really. I don't think you can properly judge a player when he's just coming off for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes in a game. You need more like starting from a match, in my opinion. Elijah Adebayo is recovering from an ACL injury, so most likely won't see him until later this year, looking at November, December, maybe January time. But he's the biggest confidence player I've ever known. The amount of chances he missed last season in the Championship, okay, you're getting in the right positions, but you miss an awful lot. Brown, since we've had him, Jacob Brown has had injuries since signing from Stoke, from Premier League season and Championship season. But I think Bloomfield likes him.
Because he's a runner. He doesn't stop running. That's the thing with Jacob Brown.
But I don't see him getting me 20 goals. I don't see him getting double figures. That's the only concern I've got with him. And then Woodrow, I think there's such not a good relationship with fans because fans just don't like him anymore. And I think he's blocked a few fans on social media due to the abuse he's been getting from them, which I think is completely wrong. I also think he's like a number 10. I've been told he's the best finisher in training, but we just don't see it on a match day. He won't get a run in the side. So yeah, when you look at the striker options, I don't see anyone at the moment that I think could get me at least 15 goals a season. Morris, I can understand why he left to go to Derby. But I think, we need a striker by the looks of things.
Yeah, I mean, where I kind of slightly challenge you on saying you need another Joe Taylor type is, I think it depends on how you want to play formation, because Joe Taylor scored all his goals for Lincoln City when he was alongside a striker called Ben House, who's basically quite a physical striker, about 6 foot, very selfless with his running, constantly pressing the opposition, but also very creative and good at slotting other strikers too. So Ben House for Lincoln City was the perfect foil for somebody like Joe Taylor for 5 months, because Taylor basically could do everything House didn't, which was he's super quick and can score goals. But I think that if you put Joe Taylor or somebody like him in a lone striker role, where I think you have to do a bit more of the back to goal stuff, I think that becomes a challenge. So for me, I think Luton need, because you've got Milinet Chali and and Taylor Asgard, who are very good at that kind of movement off the ball. I think you need a focal point to the attack. So that's the kind of profile of striker that I'll be looking for.
Well, if it's focal point, then I think we need to give Nordas a go because from what I understand and from doing my research, in the Norway League, he was playing in a 4-2-3-1 formation, which is the same as what Wickham were doing. So he was the lone striker. Yeah. So if that was the reason why we signed him, then he needs to be given a run in the team. And I think now he's going to have a proper preseason under his belt. There's no destruction. And he's
sorry, Lewis. What's his goal scoring record like in Scandinavia? Is it good?
I think he was at a team that was fighting above relegation, so he was hitting roughly about 9-10 goals a season.
Okay, so that's all right because you would hope that you could double that in a top end side that's creating a ton of chances. So.
Yes, but he also has got interest apparently as well.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, this is why it's quite weird because a lot of players which we've had over the last 6 months are having a lot more interest than the ones that have been here for more than a year. So Ali's had interest, Asgard's had interest, Nordas has had interest, Kosso's had interest, and also
Fane. Those are 4 January signings.
Yeah, and Fane as well, who didn't officially start until January because we signed him after the summer window officially, but then we loaned him back to Sweden. So he only came in January. So you can technically count him as a January signing as well. So that's 5 players there who we've recently signed have had interest to go elsewhere.
Yeah, well, that's exciting then from the point of view of what you can do in the window if you can get back to that sort of smart recruitment process. And it sounds like you've made some changes that are pretty encouraging in that regard. So then, Lewis, in terms of additions, are we looking at another 5 or 6, do you think?
I think we need a left back, as we don't have one. Yeah. We've got Joe Johnson, but I don't know if it's too early to throw him into the first team yet. Obviously, England Youth International, he did play some games in the Championship, but again, multiple systems, 2 different managers in a poor Luton team. Maybe it's really harsh to really properly judge him. Maybe in League One, he might do a lot better of a job.
Could he be part of the squad as well? You know, maybe not necessarily be expected to start every week, but at least, play 5 or 10 games.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't play 20 games in the season, I think we need to loan him out, see what you can give him a League 2 move, or a National League move. Like we need to start seeing some of our youngsters now really progress into the first team. We do have some really good ones, so hopefully we do see a lot more of them in this upcoming year. So yeah, left back definitely. I think we need to get someone in. Striker, I think personally, as we still don't know about Nordash yet, and I think Woodrow might go, potentially Brown might as well. So you got so left back, striker, and I think we need either a left or right attacker. I think if we are going to play these wide wingers, we've got Ali who could do it. I think Isaiah Jones is a question mark. Is he going to play right back or is he going to play as a right winger?
Yeah, I'd have him as a right winger. I think it's 4.
I think it's better. I think it's better further forward. The pace, just knock the ball past the defender, whip a ball in, or shoot at goal. He's perfect for that. And then you've got Ali and Isaiah Jones. You don't really have. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we don't really have anyone else, so we kind of need to strengthen in those wide areas. So you maybe getting a left and a right wide attacking player also. So you're looking at 4 players at least. But then it also depends how many players leave. Because if we're offloading loads of players, then you obviously need to replace those. The midfield's quite stacked. Centre-backs is very stacked out. And, if we're going to say Isaiah Jones is going to be a right attacker, then we're going to need a right back then as well, because Walters needs to have someone competing for that position at that right back spot. So, you're looking at, I say 5 or 6 players, like you said, actually. But we've got such a big squad. I think it's 29 players. We've got.
That's already a lot, isn't it?
Obviously, some of those 29 players are under 21 players, but they are under 21 players that have been floating with the first team. So we need to make sure that number gets a lot lower before we bring in. And I think that's why there's a lot of frustration amongst the Luton fan base, because people are like, we need to sign some players, but hang on a minute. This is the squad size. We need to kind of make sure this goes down first before we can recruit. I know League One has that weird rule where you don't actually have to include the goalkeeper. So it's 20. So it's 22 players, 22 outfield players. So hopefully, lower that number as close to the 22 mark.
Yeah, the other thing is as well, if you're big on culture and trying to rebuild that area, I think it's easier to do that when there's fewer players, because you can create a really tight knit group. Whereas if you're having crowded changing rooms and people having to change outside and in the corridors and that kind of thing, it can be hard to get a hold of the cultural side. So I think that's probably another factor as well from Matt Bloomfield's perspective.
Yeah.
With that in mind, then, Lewis, what's the expectation for this season? I think in terms of definitely the target's going to be to finish in the top two and even win the league. Would that be, in your eyes, the expectation, or is the minimum expectation from your point of view a top six finish with a strong tilt towards the top two?
Mine's top six with a strong, going for the top two spots. I've seen so many comments saying if we don't get top two, it's an unsuccessful season. That's already a lot of the fan base saying that. So expectation is basically there straight away. The pressure is on. I think I can't wait for the reality check to some supporters if we lose against AFC Wimbledon on the opening day of the season. That'd be the perfect reality check we need. But it's not going to be easy. I think the expectation is a lot more because we get the second sum of parachute payments come through the door. So when you've got that added money, and also, I've said this to a lot of people, the squad which we've got, it is a championship squad at the moment. Although we got relegated from the championship, we didn't get relegated from the championship because we don't have the quality to stay up. We got relegated from the championship because the players did not perform. They thought they could just walk, turn up, and that's enough. That's why we got relegated. And we did that so often in a lot of games last year. We had the quality to stay up. We just didn't show that. We didn't prove that. So we've got a very strong squad right now. And when I look at other teams, I think Huddersfield are the one that worry me a little bit with how they've recruited so far. I expect Bolton to have a much better season than they did last year under Schumacher. I expect Plymouth under Tom Cleverley, Stockport as well, Cardiff, as they improve.
Rambo Murphy as well.
So I'm unsure with Cardiff. They're the one that I'm a bit unsure with because I think that the squads I don't think is the greatest. I think there's a lot of League One squads better than it. I also think Reading, with the change of ownership, I think that brings a lot of feel good factor to a club that you can take onto the pitch, and that can spiral your season. And then I think as well, Port Vale and Bradford, they're my two dark horses for this year. I think they could interrupt a few teams. I think the way they've recruited and also established experienced League One managers as well in Graham Alexander and Moore. Moore's won promotion out of League One with Sheffield Wednesday. So I think when you've got those clubs all in the mix, I expect as well Peterborough to have a much better year than they did last year, but I'm a bit 50-50 with them. And also Barnsley as well. It isn't going to be, it's not going to be easy. So it's all right us acting like, oh, look, we should walk the league. But, you've got to prove it like Birmingham did. Okay, they splashed a lot of cash, but we don't have to do it like that. You can still prove it a different way. And that's by, smart recruitment and turning up, installing a really good culture, taking every game seriously like you want to win the league. So hopefully it's a mentality thing like we've already spoken about. If we get the mentality bit right, we'd do it. There's no doubt about the quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you be happy to put faith in Matt Bloomfield to get the mentality bit right and address the cultural issues?
Hope so. But I feel like if we don't start well, so the first half of the season, so say for example we get to November and we're not in touching distance of the top two, I think the pressure is going to be even higher, and I think that will creep to the owners, and I think a decision might be made. I personally think he deserves the season, but only if he gets a response out of these players and gets us, I think the first run of 6 games, strong start, get off to winning ways, beat the promotion winning sides. They're the ones that I think could cause us more problems in Wimbledon and also Bradford away, which we've got. And that would get the fan base on side quite quickly. And then hopefully, start supporting the team and trying to win promotion.
Yeah, let's hope you can do that. So as you know, Lewis, I'm doing my 1 to 24 predictions in late July, is when they'll be released. And one of my processes for doing that this year is to rate each team on 14 different categories that I think are going to determine their fate. So what I'm going to do is shout a category at you, and you can give me a number between 1 and 10.
Okay.
So the first category is ownership.
What rank is 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest? Okay. Ownership's under pressure, so I'm going to give it, I think, financially well looked after, so 8.
8, yeah, fair. Infrastructure.
Still need the new stadium, so I'm gonna give it a 7 because we've improved training facilities as well.
Yeah, a 7 for the infrastructure. Playing budget.
It's got to be 10. It's the highest in the league, I think.
Yeah, of course. Management.
Because of what he did at Wickham, I'm going to go with an 8.
Ooh, an 8 for Matt Bloomfield. Okay, nice. Goalkeeping department.
I'll give that an 8. I think we've got strong goalkeepers.
Nice. Defence.
Because we need to sort out the left back role and also the right back, I'm going to give it a 7.
7 out of 10 for the defence. Midfield.
I'm going to, if the current group, I'm giving it a 10.
10 for the midfield, right. Attack.
That is I'm toying between a 6 and a 7. I'm going to go with a...
I thought you were going to say between a 7 and an 8, actually.
No, I think we need a few more. I think with the attack, it's Ali. That I can't pinpoint anyone else. So that's why I'm going to go 6. I still think it needs looked at.
Okay. Depth.
Squad depth.
Yes.
You say? Depth. Oh, it's depth. 10. We got too many players, so 10.
10. Squad stability.
Stability. Oh. 7 now we've brought in Naismith and 7. 7
for squad stability. Growth potential. So this is players who are developing who you think are going to be a lot better this season rather than last season.
8.
8 for growth potential. Next one is team spirit.
Or I say right now is probably like a 5. On the team
hopefully, but a 5, but hopefully one that Bloomfield make a difference in. Fitness.
We weren't fit last season when we started the year, so hopefully that's improved. If I'll go with 6 because I still
6 for fitness, and finally quality.
10 because it's a championship squad at the moment.
10 for quality. Okay, so some final quickfire questions from me then, Lewis. What's the biggest reason to believe in Luton Town right now?
Ooh. We are redemption. We want to get back to old ways. We've got a determination to get back to the old Luton, the Luton under Nathan Jones, the team which, proved so many teams wrong and was willing to run through a brick wall for each other. That I think there's an operation to get us back to that because we've lost our way a little bit. So restoring our identity again.
Biggest reason for doubt?
Too much pressure and expectation on and not getting rid of certain players, which might be bad eggs.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. And finally, too early for a prediction, but give me a general feel for where you think next season might be heading for the Hatters.
I'm praying for promotion. I think the longer we be in League One, the worse it would get, in my opinion, just because of how pressure is with the supporters right now. And also with the squad and how quick that will dismantle if we stay in League One. I think it gets harder and harder each year. So I've got a feeling it would be a good year. I think Matt Bloomfield will get us back on track. And I think, everyone, especially upstairs, I think they've realised they've made a lot of mistakes and they want to they want to undo those mistakes. So I've got high hopes, hopefully. Yeah.
High hopes. Well, let's see what transpires. Lewis, thanks so much for your insight. I love your stuff on the YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us, mate, to share your insight on Luton Town. Thanks everyone for watching at home. This has been the Luton Town Summer Deep Dive, and we'll see you again for another Summer Deep Dive very soon. In the meantime, get subscribed to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify.